I can do it even without microphone, but with microphone it's even better. So without further ado, I believe we're a little bit late of time. Actually, we are, what is Larch Networks? We are a Marvel certified solution partner. We are doing business for over a decade in NOSes and hardware and everything that's connected to networking, doing software project, hardware project, everything. And I think last 4 or 5 years we started to participate in SONiC projects. And this year, well, our management decided we will be actively involved in Open LAN. Actually, because first of all, we have a lot of customers who are interested in open source and SONiC. Currently, there is a huge trend of going into the open source because people want to own their own code, which is okay with me. And mostly our target with Marvel, the positioning of the idea of the switches was enterprise. And previous systems like OpenSwitch or SONiC were not that there. And suddenly, the switches grew. And we were able to run SONiC on everything. So how we got there? We started with, we are selling a lot of devices. Now, mainly, I think it's now close to 200. Not of them are capable of running SONiC. That's why it's less. But at some point, the switches grew up. Now we have, previously we had 2-core, 1-core ARM, 800 megahertz on switch, and you're not that able to run SONiC on 256 megabytes of RAM. But in last years, and I was talking about it with Open LAN 3 years ago and 2 years ago, that guys, just a little bit of waiting and we'll get there. The switches, I'm talking about enterprise segment now, that's why we have a lot of SKUs. So obviously data center guys, they have what they want. But the idea is that currently the switch run 1-2 gigahertz 64-bit ARMs, as usually dual core, sometimes even quad core. And they have abundance of flash, eMMC is cheap as dirt, so we can have 32 gigabytes of NAND or 16 gigabytes of NAND or eMMC memory on them. And we are currently, as Larch, decided we will just supply them with 4 gigabytes of RAM. Why not? I mean, it's several dollars more. And for some cases, we found that for SONiC we need even 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is also achievable. So, and the SONiC itself, maybe because of that fact, or maybe because it's a good market and everybody is interested in that, SONiC creeped into these adjustment markets of enterprise. And as .1x is contributed and a lot of features are there, and the Open LAN movement, that we take active part in it, is building management solutions for SONiC. It got into enterprise use cases, not just data centers. So we have currently products that are tailored, and there is a lot of Marvel names here, but we are Marvel certified solution provider. We won't see Broadcom in my presentation, sorry. So the switches that are 24 ports, 48 ports of 1 gigabit, 10 gigabit uplinks, 25 gigabit uplinks, multi-gig switches that cater to the Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 7 installations, capable of running SONiC. So at some point, there is also a nice idea that we found ourselves in for developing market like India, low-cost data center switches. So the same products you can buy from the usual data center switch, just at half cost. These are based on Marvel Aldrin 2. And there is also an interest, and that we are going in some projects to do industrial solutions capable of running SONiC as well. This is the Iron Man and Alicat 5Y. This is the new chips that can capable of running up to 130 gigabits through the chip with all kind of functionality required by modern networks. Also, 4 gigabytes of RAM, I don't know, 16 gigabytes of flash. Flash is cheaper for some reason than RAM. And we see that the SONiC expanded to all these cases, like enterprise with centralized management, telcos, industrial. We have one project, unfortunately, we don't know how it will go, community or not, that are going to do MPLS on SONiC for some kind of, I see pioneers in telecom business doing open source as well. So we found ourselves this year, we started with Open LAN in a major move to Open LAN, I think in the beginning of the year, January. We found ourselves, we have a lot of switches that we are selling right now, and again, we are selling them in the big numbers on closed source NOSes. So the system are proprietary and whatever, capable of running SONiC, and we have inquiries from customers who want to get SONiC on it. But how can we test them? Now, what's the problem is? The problem is that the SONiC was built for single data center switch development and testing. Now, there is technically in the SONiC idea, there is 3 kinds of switches, T1, T0, T1, and T2, different roles, top of the rack, top of the row, whatever you call it, and leaf spine, whatever T2 is. And the idea of testing was that you take the device, the hardware device, you connect it to a fan-out switch, same amount of ports, then you connect it to the server, and then you can run tests on it. It's very flexible. I love the idea that the standard and the flexibility it gives, but just think about it. 100 SKUs. Now, for some tests, you need 2 that device under test. Some tests even need 3. So 2 3 devices switches, 2 3 devices to fan out, to connect all the ports to the server and aggregate all the traffic. Maybe 1 or 2 servers multiplied by 100. Now, we don't have that kind of data center in our company. So there are other issues we can talk about, but what we try to do, and again, we are selling 160 SKUs. Our partner strategies, we don't sell mostly don't sell directly, we sell through partners. Their strategy is to have any device you need for enterprise. Now, it can be 2 power supplies, 1 power supplies, redundant, non-redundant, hot swappable, not hot swappable, different amount of fans, the PoE, all flavors of power over Ethernet and whatever. So what we start to think, first of all, we started to think how can we shrink the amount of SKUs. And we chosen that, first of all, we can aggregate by the platform. The packet processor is different, the functionality is different, table sizes are different, so we can aggregate it to a smaller amount of switches. Second, we try to aggregate by target port speeds and use cases. So for example, if I have a switch, 24 ports with 1 power supply, and I have another one with 2 power supplies, I don't have to test each one of them, maybe once in a while. So also, we are doing cross-platform tests. There are switches that have different packet processors, but look more almost the same in capabilities. This is one of the ideas we've taken, not taken hold by now, but something we want to do. And we are separating the test for the platform management. As you may know, the platform PMON, the platform management, and what is platform management is the software that checks and controls the fans, power supplies, LEDs maybe, or other peripheral that's connected inside the switch. So technically, switch is a packet processor that is sending traffic, the data plane, the CPU, and there's a lot of kind of sensors and stuff connected to it. So all this thing is managed through platform management, and the test plans were added only in March 13, so it's in development. So we decided we'll split it out, because a lot of change in these SKUs in this platform, and we will test them separately on different switches. And we were able to create a smaller choice of possible DAT candidates. Obviously, the PoE is another point. PoE is very important. So what was our solution? What we start to do and what is our main direction we are going? We're trying to virtualize everything. Now, first of all, I don't know how much you're acquainted with Marvel. You can talk with them. Marvel have a very nice stuff that I don't see often, which is called white mode. It's an ASIC virtualization. So you can compile the SDK, and it will emulate the packet processor. I mean, the performance won't be a real-life scenario, but it will do exactly what the packet processor is, and it's just a compilation matter. So first of all, we are virtualizing the ASICs. Second of all, we are testing the SAI, and I can talk about the test, and I'm touching it here. There is several different layers of SONiC testing. There is a separate SAI testing that you do, and so all the SAI testing we do on ASIC virtualization. Now, we try to use, it's a different name. Previously it was called packet brokers, but now I think the good name is, what was the name? Smart matrices instead of fan-out switches. The SONiC testing idea is to use Q&Q, VLAN and VLAN encapsulation, pass the packets through the fan-out switch, and use the simple same fan-out switches as a fan-out. Now with matrices, we can achieve, we can emulate direct connects. So we try to virtualize the network itself together with the devices. We try to reduce by this the amount of fan-out devices. So we try to take one big matrix, switch matrix with a lot of ports, and connect several devices to it. So not to multiply by 2, but a small factor. And we are currently actively working on 2 things. First one is we are virtualizing SONiC community tests. Now, the SONiC community test, that will be on my next slides, is something that tests the features themselves, like VLANs or .1x. And we have a lot of tests we've done ourselves based on topology framework, which is coming from OpenSwitch. I believe you've been part of it. And we're also working in this direction. So at some point, we hope to contribute this. The SAI tests, the test of the low-level driver, works very well in emulation, on the ASIC simulation. They check that API calls to the chip are performed well. So the low-level drivers, you put a rule in the table, and you check that the table is populated. I mean, it's not a network feature, but it's important to know that the low-level ASIC is working. And it covers 90% of the features from Marvel SDK, which is very good. That's TCAM, the polysync, table sizes, FIS, port speeds. The traffic, as I said, the emulation, you can send the traffic. The performance will not be the real time, but still good enough to check that the packets are forwarded correctly. The community tests, which I really, again, I love the idea. It's very flexible, and that was the start of it, but maybe not that optimized. You can see there are a lot of features that are tested now. So first of all, I call it pros and issues to still work on. So the pros are you can use, they use config.db JSON and Redis to configure the SONiC, which is the way you get more or less direct access to the management plane. There is a universal mechanism for test creation, works for all the platforms. Same tests for all distributions and actively pushed to Git. If a new test is required, you can be created and merged, and many tests already existing, and the number is growing as we speak. Now, the issues to work on, which is very important stuff, is most of the tests are built for some kind of specific hardware. And when I'm saying this, I'm implying that for Broadcom platform, for example, not only for Marvel, but even worse than that, they're built for specific device. So, you need to change them in order to work on something else. There is a separate setup. There is, for specific board, you need to create a very intricate setup of parameters to start testing it. So they're not universal. You can't just run test on anything you want. You need a special test for a specific board and to configure it. It may take a week to configure a platform. And just imagine us having, I don't know, 50 devices we need to test, 50 weeks. So, as I said, platform dependent. It's heavy on server performance. Some tests obviously are in development to basic, and we're still far from covering all the SONiC feature set. So also we see that there is a lot to develop in VXLAN tests, and it takes a lot of effort to understand the cause of if the test fails. Because again, the tests are very close to the platform. So when the test fails, you get a lot of false, I call it false negatives. So it tests that fails, not the feature itself. So you need to work on that. So just some information that may be interesting to you. We are running SONiC tests for some time now for a corporate customer. The CI automation tests running on the hardware usually take twice the time that we make them in the virtualization. So we virtualize the test. We have three kind of tiers. There is a base sanity check list of tests, nightly build, and full community check to run all the tests. And this is the duration it takes to run the devices on the hardware and in the emulation. So you can see, this is, for me, it was important to check up that on virtualization we achieved twice time savings to do the full test that we need. Now, another direction we are working is we started with OpenSwitch a long time ago with open source, and it has a thing called HP topology framework, open source. You can get it on Git if you want. And during, I think, 7 last years, we've been doing testing using this topology framework for all kinds of commercial NOSes. And we have a set of 500 tests right now, over 500 even, to test all kinds of features and topologies and features working together. Now, the problem there is this was built in the old times so that everybody used CLI, and SONiC doesn't have a CLI. Now, some Broadcom-ish guys have a CLI, but not in the community. So we are, I think this direction is we are going to contribute to Klish as a SONiC choice of CLI, and then we will be able to try to modify this test to run on SONiC as well. That's one of the directions we want to go. So what's most important thing to understand why virtualization is important. Virtualization can run the test in parallel. And if you're running tests on the hardware, you need to run them in sequential order. So for commercial nodes that we are testing with all these tests, the time to take the tests is 5-6 hours to run virtualized for the full feature set, and 3 days to run the tests on the hardware. So the SONiC community, the more the test will be developed, that will be the problem of doing CI tests and integration if they'll be run on the hardware itself. So we are actively working on this virtualization project, and we hope to contribute as well. And there are some issues with virtualization as well. I just got some ideas of the things we are only doing on hardware, like VXLAN test, EVPN, multi-home especially, is behaving different with the load rather than on virtualization. The MCLAG is highly dependent on the reaction of the ASIC on the changes, so we can't do a lot of MCLAG, 2VTAP topologies, very sophisticated, very hard to do on the virtual things. QoS, obviously, you need to send the traffic. And maybe there are other things that you can't do virtual, but the aim of ourselves is to go and do the virtualized testing of the systems, because otherwise we don't know how we can manage all these kind of SKUs. I thought I'm all in my presentation, but if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer. And if you want to talk with me about ASICs, enterprise, SONiC, open source, we are here till the end of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexander. We do have a couple of minutes after each session for a quick Q&A. Any questions for the speaker?
You can come to me personally. I'll be here.
No, I have a question. So you were saying that you plan to, or you are going to use the cliche to extend the management framework with the CLI. So it's because you need cliche, you cannot use the click CLI that's available in SONiC?
We try, that's currently the idea, we can talk about it, by the way, that I've seen that the cliche is adopted as a standard de facto of the SONiC management framework.
Yes.
That's why. So
there is click already in SONiC. So cliche in community is not, let's say, full.
We'll talk with you about that. Maybe we'll change.
By click, you can do sudo show, sudo config, like a Linux, like it's existing, it's full.
That's a good explanation to that. Now, people are not that, some people are very, let's say, open to new things. Some customers that we have are very old-fashioned and they don't change that fast. So they want a CLI. Okay. Now it's difficult to explain to them that the standard de facto CLI in SONiC is running things from bash, all through kind of Linux commands. So they want some CLIs like they had in the previous.
They know conft.
Yeah, they know configure terminal. That's what they want.
Yeah, and they try to find it. And once they are not finding, they are saying, actually, what we are doing now, we are providing them ability on the same hardware to run both proprietary operation system,
and
which is 99% Cisco look-like, and SONiC. So they start with SONiC, they work with SONiC, and today the reason for...
And we're talking about enterprise, again, not data center guys.
This, let's say, old school people, they are saying, guys, please remove this SONiC, put operation system that we know how to configure Cisco. Our support guys, they have this CCNA
CNP certification.
So everything works for them well. So our idea may be to introduce this Cisco look-like CLI to SONiC as well, because I think it goes.
And by the way, cliche is an active part of your speech. Also, SONiC, you're doing.
It's not about cliche. I believe the reason why I asked about this. So you said that you have something around 500 cases which require CLI for you to port. And for that, you would need to do cliche. For me, CLI is the feature, is the management interface. It can be enabled, disabled, as per the customer choice, as you said. Some of them want, some of them don't. So my point was, why you forcing yourself?
No, we're not forcing ourselves. My idea is the limiter here is the framework was built for OpenSwitch, and OpenSwitch was a normal switch, just open source. So the framework operates through CLI. It can be any CLI.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any blockers of saying only cliche will go. Okay. Any CLI will be okay. Can talk with you.
Yes.
So, but the problem is,
we are currently in the process of creating. We now have customers who do want to move from proprietary operation system to commercial one, to open source. But they fear that they will not be able to work
Maintain them
with.
and manage them the right
So,
way.
let's maybe not.
So let's talk not in the,
Yeah.
anybody?
Just to add here, from the systems integration perspective, you're fully right. People are looking for a CLI interface still today, and they want to see a Cisco CLI framework. That is widely spread. It's used everywhere, and you need to have it for deployments. Yes.
Also,
I really
there is another
appreciate
point why Klish or Tish or Imish or whatever you call it is preferred, maybe, is that the moment you go deeper to enterprises, they want accounting, authorization, and they want tactics and radios. And sometimes we get even, they want not just core, they want full rights on the management. So and I don't know how to implement it on the Linux scale on the
Yes,
on the bash.
yes.
So they want even to specify which commands to use it. Yes, okay, you tell me that.
Yes, absolutely.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm very good on Marvel ASICs as well, on enterprise hardware, and just as a point, there are many switches that are available, so if anybody wants to play with SONiC and still hesitating to get yourself a device, come to us, we'll give you a sample. Okay.
You said give or sell?
We give it for almost free. Very cheap. Okay.